Hello everyone, question 2 here, a logarithm question, suitable for both A2 and AS. By taking logarithms of both sides, solve the equation 4 to the power of 3p minus 1 equals 5 to the 210. So I've just basically taken logs of both sides. Now, it doesn't matter what log you take. I could take ln, I could do log base 10, I could do log base 4, I could do log base 5. It really makes no difference as long as you're consistent and you take the same power, the logarithm to the same power on both sides, or the same base rather. So I've just chosen to do log base 10, which we just write as log. So there we go, that's that second line, log and log. The next step is to use the power law to bring this to the front. So power law brings the 3p minus 1 and the 210 to the front. I've then chosen to divide by log base 4. So I've got 210 times log 5 divided by log 4. Then I add 1 to both sides and divide by 3. And when we put that into our calculator, that gives us 81.6008. So that is, which is 81.6 to 1 decimal place. So that is question 2 on that paper. Let's have a look at the next one, question 3. Okay, so on this one, we've now got a vector question. So let's have a look at question 3. Relative to a fixed origin O, the point A has the position vector 2i add 5j minus 6k. B has that position vector and C has that other position vector. Find out A to B. Now, it's it's notoriously difficult to try and picture 3 dimensions on a 2-dimensional plane, but just for the purpose of a sketch, I've just done like a little sketch. So if we imagine that we've got some vector A and some vector B, and we want to find out how do I go from A to B, how I go from A to B is I'm going to do A to O plus O to B. So to go from A to B is A to O plus O to B. And going from A to O is minus O to A. So we get the vector O to A, put a minus in front of it. We have our vector here, which is O to B. So when we add these together, we end up with I minus 8j plus 2k. So that, for 2 marks, is our part A done. Now, show that the quadrilateral OABC is a trapezium, giving reasons for your answer. So let's have a look. So basically we've got our point C, which I've represented down here, and what we're investigating is that OC should be parallel to AB. Now that's one of the conditions that would need to be met if OABC was in fact going to be a trapezium. So let's have a look and see what we're going to say. OC, we're told, is 2i minus 16j add 4k. So I've taken a factor of 2 outside, giving us I minus 8j add 2k. Now notice that is what we found for AB. So what we're saying is that we found that the vector O to C is in fact a scalar multiple of A to C. And the implication of that is that they are in fact parallel to each other. Okay, so we've just established that OC and AC are parallel. So we can say that would be sufficient, I think, in this case, that we can say that it is going to be a trapezium. I mean, if we wanted to prove that it was a rhombus or something like that, we'd have to find the length of OA and the length of BC. So for the purpose of this question, it is sufficient just to say that AB and OC are parallel to each other, so that quadrilateral is going to be a trapezium. So that's how you would do question 3. Okay, let's have a look at question 4. The function f is defined by f of x. Find the inverse of f of x and then show that f of x is that expression there. Quite a really nice little functions question here for us. So let's have a look. First of all, there's 2 different approaches that teachers take when it comes to finding an inverse. I'm in the camp that likes to swap over the x and y before we do the rearrangement, okay? So what I do is I write down the equation. Instead of f of x, I write y. And then everywhere that I see a y, I replace it with an x. And everywhere that I see an x, I replace it with a y. And then I just rearrange the whole thing to make y the subject, okay? So that's just my preference. So other methods are available. So we now multiply both sides by y minus 2, giving us x times by y minus 2 equals 3y minus 7. We now expand the bracket, so x times y and minus 2 times x. So that gives us that when we expand it. We now need to get everything that has just a y on one side and everything else on the other. So this 3y is going to come over to the left-hand side, and this minus 2x is going to be moved to the right-hand side. And that's what's happened in this line here. That one's come to the left and that one's gone to the right. We now factorize out the y. Okay, so that gives us y, open bracket, x minus 3 equals 2x minus 7. And then finally we divide by the x minus 3. So we end up with 3x minus 7 over x minus 3. And that's our answer to part A for 2 marks. Part B, show that f of f, oh, actually, no, it's not quite. We've got to find the inverse of 7. So that's our expression, rather, for our inverse f of x. We now need to put 7 into that. So we have 2 times 7 minus 7 is 14, take away 7, which is 7. And then we have 7 take away 3 is 4. So 7 over 4 is our final answer to part A. Part B then, finding our f of x. Now this means it's a composite function in which f of x is going into f of x. So in other words, everywhere that we have x in our original function is going to be replaced by f of x in our composite function. So you can see I've written 3x minus 7 and x minus 2, but the x has been replaced by f of x itself. Okay. So now my advice to anybody would be, whenever you've got this kind of situation where you have fractions within a fraction, the most sensible approach is to multiply the numerator and the denominator by whatever it is that's causing it to be a fraction within a fraction. In this case, you can see that the x minus 2 is the thing that's causing it to be a fraction within a fraction. So when I multiply the numerator and denominator by x minus 2, this cancels out here and we end up with 3 times 3x minus 7, and the 7 gets times by the x minus 2 there. In the denominator, that x minus 2 cancels to give just 3x minus 7, and then this minus 2 gets multiplied by the x minus 2. We then just expand the brackets, so 3 times 3 is 9, 3 times minus 7 is minus 21, minus 7x, and be careful, minus and a minus makes a plus when you remove that symbol, so that's going to be positive 14 there. In the denominator, same thing, remove the brackets and collect like terms, being careful that this term becomes positive 4. And that's where I think students could make a mistake. We then collect all the like terms and we end up with 2x minus 7 over x minus 3 is our composite function in the format that the question is asking. Okay, question 5. So far so good on this paper. Question 5, what does it tell us here? So in question 5, it says a car has 6 forward gears. The fastest gear of the car, the fastest speed of the car in first gear is 28 kilometers per hour, and in sixth gear it's 115 kilometers per hour. Given that the fastest speed of the car in successive gears is modeled as an arithmetic sequence, find the fastest speed of the car in third gear. So let's have a look and see what we've got. So if we're talking about arithmetic in this particular question, then we have the formula for the nth term here of an arithmetic sequence is a plus n minus 1 times d. So the sixth term is going to be u6, which is going to be the first term, which is 28, plus n minus 1, which is 6 minus 1 times by d. The only unknown in that is the common difference. So the common difference turns out to be 17.4. So now that we know the common difference, we've got everything that we need now to work out the the fastest speed in the third gear, which is going to be given by u3 is equal to a plus 3 minus 1 times d. We now know that we knew that a was 28 anyway, but we now know that the common difference is 17.4. So that gives us that u3 is 62.8. Okay, part B. Given that the fastest speed of the car in successive gears is modelled by a geometric sequence, find the fastest speed of the car in fifth gear. So this time they're saying instead of it being arithmetic, it's now geometric. So the nth term for an geometric sequence is un is equal to a times by r minus 1 to the power of, a times by r to the power of n minus 1. So we've got the speed in sixth gear is 115, A is 28, and N is 6. So therefore we divide both sides by 28 and take the fifth root, and that gives us the value of the common ratio if we model it as a geometric sequence. So we've now got to find the fastest speed in fifth gear, so that's going to be U5 is 28 times by the common ratio that we've just found, times by 5 to the power of -1, and that is 86.7 kilometers per hour to 3 significant figures. And that's how you would do question 5. Okay, I think I'll leave it at those 5 questions for this first video in this series. Thank you for watching. Remember, if you are finding these videos useful, if you could like and subscribe to the channel, that will really help me to keep on making more videos moving forward. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.